So a good leader goes in and starts by understanding who they are, what motivates them, what drives them, what gets them out of bed in the morning, how they engage with others, how others perceive them. If you change your thoughts, then that can change your actions. And when you change your actions, that changes the outcome in your life. But understanding yourself, in particular, in this case, I'm saying, hey, for me, I have to understand how something works before I can delegate. Other people may not be that way. They may be like, no, I'm pretty good at delegating. I don't mind doing it. But there is that fine balance. You talked about delegation versus micromanagement.
Welcome back to another podcast by Vibrant Publishers. Today we have a very special guest, Jamie Turner. He is an internationally recognized author, professor, consultant, and a TV news contributor known for his segments on CNN about marketing, persuasion, and leadership. Jamie is also the founder of the Unspoken Rules of Leadership that guides about thousands of executives around the globe. Welcome to the podcast, Jamie.
Leah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And I'm looking forward to talking about leadership and how to be a better leader for yourself and also how to do a better job leading other people. So good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So to dive right in, the concept of unspoken rules of leadership sound very interesting to me. Mm-hmm. So it piqued my curiosity. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, the unspoken rules of leadership are all those rules and guidelines that aren't written about in textbooks, but they are commonly known or known among executives about how to engage in a meeting, how to communicate more effectively, how to build better teams, all of those things that are really relevant for all of us. And the reason it's called the unspoken rules of leadership is that years ago, I was consulting with an organization. There was a young gentleman there who was very ambitious, but he grew up in a household without a father at home. And so he struggled a little bit with understanding how the corporate world worked. And so he came to me and said, hey, I'm very ambitious. And he was also very smart. And he said, I'm really interested in working my way up the chain of command, but I want to know what the rules are because I don't kind of understand them. I wasn't brought up in a household where my mom or dad was working in a corporate environment. And I said, I'll tell you what, there is a lot of unspoken rules about being a good executive and about being a good leader and about being a good team player. I can walk you through what those unspoken rules are as long as you give me permission to tell you about stuff that basically are not things that are commonly talked about in an office. And he said, sure, that would be great. So we talked about everything from how he dressed to how he presented himself in a meeting to how he communicated with his bosses. All of those things that were the kind of things you might learn growing up in a more stable environment. He was very appreciative for what I had done with him and did very well for himself and continues to do well for himself. But that was the origin of the idea for the book, which is, wow, there's all these unspoken rules. And if you kind of know them, then you're able to go in and be a better leader, a better executive, and a better manager.
Thank you for sharing that. That was really insightful. I like to say that, when you spoke to this person, so there surely was certain characteristics that you found and that made him become an effective leader. So could you point out some true traits that are there in leaders?
Yeah, the main thing a good leader has is self-awareness. And that means that they understand themselves as well as they understand, or even better than they understand the people around them. So a good leader goes in and starts by understanding who they are, what motivates them, what drives them, what gets them out of bed in the morning, how they engage with others, how others perceive them. These are all the important things that a good leader understands. From there, a good leader then understands that you have to change how you think about the world around you in order to succeed in the world around you. So in other words, if you change your thoughts, then that can change your actions. And when you change your actions, that changes the outcome in your life. Now, the only two things you have control of in that little model I just gave are your thoughts and your actions. The outcomes you kind of have to let roll out the way they roll out because you can't control every outcome, but you can control your thoughts and your actions. So the primary thing I do when I talk to people about being a good leader is I walk them through self-awareness and how to understand who they are. And then I talk to them about changing their mindset first and their skill set second. And they do that by changing their thoughts, which ultimately changes their actions, which ultimately improves the outcome. Buddha was one of the first people to talk about that. Change your thoughts, that will change your actions. Good thoughts lead to good actions, which lead to good outcomes. So I'm borrowing heavily from a very wise person there.
I agree. It's the thought that mindset comes first and then the skill set later. So it's more of a process, right? So, but when you speak about the process, there also has to be some bit of communication that's involved. Could you give some tips and techniques that our audience could use right away while becoming a good leader?
Sure. So specifically about communication skills, the primary thing on communication is to get it inside the mind of the person you're speaking to and try to understand their motivations and where they're coming from. When you do that, you're better able to meet them where they are. If you are working with somebody who is not very ambitious, they might be a good worker, but they don't have any high aspirations to achieve and become the CEO or anything. Understanding that that's their mindset helps you communicate with them slightly differently than you would with somebody who is very ambitious and ready to take on the world. So the first starting point for good communication is understand the person you're speaking to, talk to them, recognize what motivates them and drives them. And then the other thing is to understand their style of communication. So it's one thing to understand what's on their mind. Now you have to understand how they speak and how they engage with the world around them. Some people are direct communicators. A direct communicator is somebody who goes in and speaks very clearly and very succinctly, and there's no extra words to what they say. I have a client right now, very direct communicator. I will get emails back from him that say yes or no or okay. Now, I understand his style of communication well enough to know he's a direct communicator. He's not being angry. He's not being rude. He's just giving me the data that I need. So understanding his style helps me engage with him and talk with him better. And then also you have to understand the other styles of communication. Some people are very systematic in how they communicate. Other people are very heartfelt in how they communicate and open up and talk about a lot of emotional components. When you understand how the person you're talking to communicates, you're then better able to kind of get inside their mind, work with them, and achieve a good outcome for both of you. So that's some of the fundamental things I teach people on how to be a good leader and how to be a good communicator and how to work well with your teammates.
Right. I agree completely that there are different types of communication. But at times what happens is a leader could have a certain roadmap, and there could be a possibility that he would want to delegate those tasks. What is the thin line? How can a leader choose from delegating tasks well rather than micromanaging?
It's hard. I'm going to be honest with you. For me in particular, I am the kind of person who loves to roll up their shirt sleeves and kind of get the work done themselves. And so I used to struggle a lot with delegation. I've gotten better over the years, but what I found for me personally, and maybe this will help your listeners and viewers, I found that I have to understand what it is I'm delegating thoroughly before I can delegate it. What I mean by that is I have to understand how something works before I can say, I need you to go over and make that work. And that's just the way I am. It's part of my need to understand how the mechanics of everything work together. But understanding yourself, in particular, in this case, I'm saying, hey, for me, I have to understand how something works before I can delegate. Other people may not be that way. They may be like, no, I'm pretty good at delegating. I don't mind doing it. But there is that fine balance. You talked about delegation versus micromanagement. There's a great line I talk about in a lot of my workshops, and it is that your employees want to know which mountain to climb, not how to climb the mountain. And so what they're saying is your employees want to know what the goal is and where they're going, but they don't want you to sit there and tell them how to climb the mountain. They want to do that themselves. When you have that fine balance of saying, here's where I want you to go, but I'm going to let you accomplish it, then they will be more inspired to work harder and better because they're now sitting around going, okay, I now know that I'm in charge of climbing this mountain and making it to the summit. I've got to figure it out for myself. If I get into a jam, I can turn to Jamie or I can turn to my boss and say, how do I get out of this jam? But overall, I've been given the goal, I've been given the objective, and now it's up to me to achieve it. So that's a great thing to keep in mind as you delegate. Your employees want to know which mountain to climb, not how to climb it.
That's a really good analogy right there because the whole idea of delegation gets tackled. I'd like to ask you, what are the other common pitfalls that come with leadership in general?
Micromanagement, as we just mentioned, bad communication skills, as we've talked about, not understanding how to lead a team and build a team environment where people feel good about where they're going. What team members want is they want clear goals and also clear expectations. When you give them those two things, here's the goal and here's what I'm expecting from you, they have the freedom to go in and do it. So as you're moving through your own leadership journey, make sure that you're going in and saying, let me set expectations for others and let me also help them understand what the goal is. The other thing, and we've talked about this a little bit also, is understanding what motivates them and what drives them and what gets them out of bed in the morning. When you understand that, you're better able to go in and help them accomplish that. Let me tell a quick story. I used to go around to my employees, and when I was working with them, I'd say, tell me a little bit about what you want to be doing in 5 years. And I would say, I want an honest answer. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what you actually want to be doing. And I would have everything from I want to be retired all the way over in 5 years, all the way over to I want to be the CEO in 5 years, all the way over to I just want to do my job and go home at 5 p.m. All of those are good answers because it would help me go into that employee and understand how to work with them better and figure out how to help them accomplish what they want to accomplish while they're helping me accomplish what I want to accomplish. So as an example, if somebody wanted to be a CEO someday, I would go in with bigger tasks, harder tasks. And I'd say, look, I know you want to be a CEO someday. CEOs have to work with these issues. I'm going to give these issues to you to work with because that's in your objective of what you want to accomplish in your career. If I'd given those same tasks to somebody who was not ambitious, they would have said, I don't want to do these things, and it would have been a mismatch. So the key thing I want to drive home here is understand your employees, get inside their mind. You're going to be a better leader when you understand them and then work backwards from there with your needs.
You just spoke about motivation, and I think that is one of the essence of being a leader, right? Being a motivator within your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And motivation is really about shared objectives. It's not about pep talks, although those can help. It's not about, being pushy or doing rah-rah meetings, although those can help. It's really about setting mutually agreed to objectives that benefit both parties, the leader as well as the team member. When you do that, it really works out well.
Right. All right. So there's another saying that goes, sometimes you win, but sometimes you also learn. So there are times where leaders have to, face failures. How can they then, normalize failures in that perspective and take one for the team?
Yeah. Of course, failure is one of those things that's difficult to handle. In the moment when you've had a failure, it always hurts. It always stings. It always is something that is a challenge. But if you have resilience, if you have the ability to bounce back, which almost all of us do, what you do is you realize that failures are an opportunity to learn. My father once told me, you'll learn more from your failures than you will from your successes. And it's true. When you have a failure, you step back, you go, why did that fail? Where did I go wrong? What were things that were outside of my control that I couldn't handle? What could I have done differently? All of those things add up to learning from failure. So accepting the fact that you're going to feel stung initially during a failure and knowing that that pain will go away eventually and being able to come out of that and learn from it is a very, very good thing. Now, some of us, it's easier for us to move through failure more quickly than others. It's just the way your brain physiology works. It's nothing that you need to, that you can control too much of. But there's a real estate person in the United States named Barbara Cochran who went in and she said, I always could tell which one of my salespeople were going to succeed in the long run. The ones who got a no on the phone and then hung up and were devastated for 3 hours weren't going to succeed. But the ones who hung up the phone and a few minutes later bounced back, she knew they were going to succeed. Now, recognizing that we all grieve in different amounts of times, even if it's a small grief of a deal that didn't close. But when we realize that, hey, that failure ultimately will propel me forward, it's helpful intellectually to understand that so that you can move forward and jump back on board and get things done and roll up your shirt sleeves and have a good time at work. Because in the end of the day, it's all about having fun at work.
You speak about fun at work, and that pops up the question of work-life balance, because as a leader, there's this expectation of sort where a leader may not have the right balance with work and other things. So how does one navigate those?
I'm going to say something that might be unpopular, but it is relevant and true. And the unpopular thing I'm going to say is that when you are trying to move your way up the chain of command and you're trying to climb a mountain and get to the top, there's not a lot of work-life balance. That doesn't mean that's a good thing. It just is a thing. And what I mean by that is, if you are, let's go back to the analogy of climbing a mountain. If you want to climb Mount Everest and you're saying, well, I want some work-life balance while I'm climbing Mount Everest, you're never going to reach the summit. So there are periods of time that all leaders have to go in and say, you know what? I'm going to have a little less work-life balance right now, and I'm going to push through, and I'm going to get to the summit of Mount Everest. And once I'm there, I'm going to relax a little bit. And so I think the idea of, wouldn't it be great if we could all have work-life balance and still get to the top of the mountain? I know this is going to be unpopular to say, but there are very few people who've been able to do that. And if you're one of them and you can have work-life balance and you get to the top of the mountain, I am all in favor of that. In my experience, 99% of the time, you have to push through and challenge yourself and accomplish your goals. And once you've accomplished your goals, you can slow down a little bit, take a little bit of a breather, and have the work-life balance that you're looking for. So key thing I want you to remember, yes, I'm saying something that's countercultural right now. People in our culture are saying we need more work-life balance, and that is true. But I also want to recognize that if you want to climb to the top of the mountain, there are going to be periods where you're going to have to saddle up, put on your crampons, and really push through to get to the top. And that you'll be able to have a little more work-life balance once you get to the top of the mountain. So the choice is yours. Hang out, have complete work-life balance and maybe not accomplish everything that you were hoping to accomplish, or say occasionally I'm going to have to push through and really work hard in order to accomplish the goals. And you just have to choose that spectrum and figure out, where am I on that spectrum? There's no right or wrong answer. There's just an answer that's for you, and you've got to use that answer to guide you as you go through your career journey.
I agree. You spoke about self-awareness, and I think the leader has to know where he stands and what he really wants in this space.
Yeah, I think so. The self-awareness and understanding what you're looking for and what motivates and inspires your employees is super important. And if you can do that, then you'll end up having a great team and a great company.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing your insights with us. It was really a goldmine of leadership advice that I personally gained from. I'm sure our listeners have also gained from this conversation.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm very glad to be here, Leah. Thank you for all your great questions. And I appreciate you letting me share the wisdom or the thoughts or the ideas with your audience. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If you're looking to elevate your leadership skills, be sure to check out Jamie's social handles in our description. And for more inspiring content, subscribe to the Vibrant Publishers podcast. Until next time, see you.